when you give people what they vote for,
Right.
does everybody else pay? All right, here you go, Anna.
Yep.
Are police budget cuts in liberal cities like LA doing more harm than good? Back in 2021, LA slashed $150 million from the LAPD, meant to send a message to reinvest in communities and reduce force size. But this resulted in what?
Well, in a lot of liberal cities, actually, right now, what you'll notice is this trend of the local politicians allocating a lot more funding than ever before, record amounts of funding for their local police departments. And this is an argument that a lot of the defund the police movement types make. Well, what are you talking about? We're defunding the police. We're actually spending more on police than ever before. That's true. However, it turns out we're spending a lot more on fewer police officers, fewer sworn officers. So let me take you for a ride.
Yeah.
Buckle up. So basically back in 2001, in response to the mass protests that were happening in response to policing, excessive force.
2001?
In 2021, my
Oh,
bad.
okay,
I
sorry. I was like, wow, you are going way back.
No,
Okay,
my
sorry.
bad. I misspoke.
I'm with you.
So in 2021, the Los Angeles City Council decides, you know what? Yeah, why don't we cut the police budget to the tune of $150 million, and then we're going to divert that money to other programs to help Angelenos. That was the plan. Now, when they did that, they did lose sworn officers, because obviously you're cutting the police budget. You're going to have to get rid of some of the positions. But here's what happens. Like, the crime doesn't go away. So the remaining police officers end up working overtime hours, and they get paid a lot for that, a time and a half. So, for instance, Los Angeles, by the way, spent a total of $1.1 billion on overtime alone last year, 2024. Not all of that money went to police, but a huge portion of it did. Now, more than a decade ago, in 2013, then Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa had allocated enough funding for the LAPD to have 10,000 police officers. That was the highest number ever. However, about like a decade later, you get that cut. Because of the protests, there were a lot of early police retirements as well. So they're eliminating positions. A lot of cops did early retirement, or they just quit because they're like, this is not a desirable job. My city hates me. I don't want to do this. So now the city council's actual spending on the LAPD has surged due to these ballooning overtime costs. By 2022, when the department had 9,496 sworn officers, they spent nearly $214 million for overtime pay for the LAPD. And that number just keeps going up. And by the way, LA has always had far fewer police officers per capita, meaning, per 100,000 people than any other major city. So for instance, Washington, D.C. employs 542.91 officers per capita, while Los Angeles employs 236.86. Other cities, you're looking at Chicago, 454, Las Vegas, 444, New York City, 440, Detroit, 392. In LA, we have 236. These officers are going to work insane overtime hours. They've been working insane overtime hours. And now we have more than a dozen cops in the LAPD who are making above $400,000 a year. This is not cost effective. This is stupid. And if you want to save costs on the police department, you need to have them be fully staffed. Sorry. If you hate cops, hate cops all you want. I don't want to pay more for fewer cops because that's what we're doing right now. Yeah. It's absurd.
But see, can we just comment on one thing? I don't hate cops. I want cops.
Yes.
And you know what I was able to do? Leave California. I was able to leave because of the crime, because of the fires, because of the policies.
All of that, it's in your imagination, by the way. It's all made up in your head, Jillian. We're all making it up.
Like, I had friends who, I was sitting there.
Don't believe your lying eyes.
It was 2020 and the riots, and they're like, oh, we got to defund the cops. And I was like, you are bananas. Good luck here. But that's the part that worries me, and I don't mean to bring it back, is that what about the people that can't move? What about the people that are stuck with this and that get raped or get robbed?
Well,
crime is up in California. And by the way, I'm taking this way off piece, but you can't buy a gun anymore and shoot somebody who breaks in your house. So now I have friends buying literally killer dogs Because if someone breaks in your house in California and you shoot them, you're going to jail for murder.
You could be prosecuted. It's actually a lot harder in LA to basically protect yourself with a firearm if someone's breaking into your home.
People are buying literally killer dogs.
But, you know, I do see that as a separate issue.
It is.
I mean, it's
you're
related,
right.
but
I went totally off. You're right. And I tell you guys don't do it, and I just did. I'm done talking for this segment. You guys
I do want to just say, this past budget by the LA City Council had to cut all sorts of services for Angelenos. We're like the highest taxed in the country, right? And the reason why they had to do that is because of overtime costs. We were in the hole to the tune of $1 billion. So we're paying more for less police. Crime is crime. I don't know what to tell you. It has to be. I mean, our laws need to be enforced. People need to be kept safe. So crime continues to exist. We have fewer police officers. They're working longer hours. We're paying more than ever before for the police department. And as a result of that budget deficit, all sorts of other services end up getting cut. So please, for the anti-police crowd, make it make sense. How does this make sense?
It's like whatever they propose, it almost does the inverse. It's like, hey, let's introduce this to fix it, and then it just amplifies the situation tenfold.
And we can't have this discussion without discussing, essentially, because it's such a tremendous force in this country, the George Soros-funded candidates and prosecutors around the country. It's not just here on the East Coast in Philadelphia, New York, but it's also in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Thank God they just got a new one. But these people, they're not just soft on crime, they're completely limp on crime. And so they see police as basically the enemy. They see instead that we have to focus, their solutions presumably are to focus on social services, just like throw social workers at everyone and mental health. And I believe in all of that. I agree with that, but I don't think it's an alternative. I think it's
the police, right?
Exactly. It's a both situation, not an or. It's not an either or situation.
I agree.
And thank you. And right now, and the fact that they've hollowed out the police, there's another externality, which is it gives Trump an excuse to bring in the National Guard. Trump is saying, you obviously don't have the law enforcement capable of exerting control over society. Thus, I have the authority and I have the rationale to bring to deploy them. So if you don't want the National Guard in your neighborhood, then don't hollow out your police department. Show some ability and capacity to do your own business.
Well, we saw that firsthand with no kings, right?
Yeah, well, the police chief had even confessed during a press conference that they're overwhelmed and they can't handle it. And I do think that gave Trump a green light when it came to the National Guard being deployed to protect federal buildings that were being defaced as a result of, some of the there were demonstrations, but there were also riots, and the rioters obviously focused on destroying buildings as they typically do. But look, I just think if we're paying our taxes, we should get something in return. And the idea that we should spend more for fewer cops is infuriating.
Not just fewer cops, though,
but fewer everything.
More crimes.
Right.
It results in even worse outcomes. And we see that. And what happened, actually, I'm a huge fan of the broken window theory. Do you guys remember that? Back in the 90s, under Giuliani and under, actually, Michael Bloomberg perpetuated it as well. Their theory is that you have to go after the small crimes like broken windows, because if you go after the small criminals, they will not escalate and become more hardened criminals. And we've completely discarded that that approach, even though it was extremely effective, because some people accused it of being racist or whatever. Everything is.
Look, there was definitely. Mass incarceration was and continues to be in some parts of the country a problem.
I think that's separate from the broken window theory.
True, but I do think that there was heavy-handed policing. I was under the impression, and I've now learned that I was totally wrong about this. All of the calls to reform policing, I was on board with, because I do think police need better training. I think there are police departments across the country who don't know how to respond to someone who's having a mental health episode. These things need more investment, not less investment.
But honestly, thank God for body cam footage, because for a long time it was this notion of the police abusing their power. And don't get me wrong, there are corrupt cops out there. But what I can say is I'm so grateful for a lot of this body cam footage, because it has helped stop to perpetuate some of the narrative that is being pushed that caused this whole defund the police thing in the first place.
It also helps
though with police brutality after Rodney King.
No, but girl, let me. I mean,
We didn't have a
the
bad
demonstrations
record in
that just
2020,
happened in
though.
downtown LA. Did you see the video
no, I was
of the
talking
reporter?
about more like cops killing black people when they were calling to defund the police. In LA, that had been reformed significantly.
Well, there had been reforms,
I agree with
and
you
if
on
you look at the
investing money.
numbers,
I'm just saying we didn't have a ton of scandals after Rodney King of LA cops indiscriminately killing people of color.
But the point I was going to bring up is, you know, there was that video of an Australian reporter who was just doing her job. Like, she wasn't doing anything wrong, and you see a police officer shoot her with a rubber bullet for no reason. That person needs to be fired. We need to weed out the bad guys from the police department, and there needs to be strict standards to make sure, because if the public doesn't trust the police department, that's also an issue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what births all of this stuff, really. Which
Yeah. Well, I'm going to transition after this final thought. Finish your thought,
I just
Lindy.
want to say the public needs to trust, but also these demagogues that we currently have, and I think it's one party is mostly responsible for demagoguing against the police. We need to stop demonizing the law enforcement, because who does that help really? Like, who does that serve?
Nobody.
It doesn't help. Exactly.
Nobody.
It helps nobody. It undermines public trust, and they're
guys
less
are
able to
risking
do
their
their job.
lives.
Exactly.
Every freaking day they deal with the craziest shit.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.